although it's a story that sounds ridiculous, what Farage says is that when Trump says something like that, the world goes, oh, for God's sake, how ridiculous. But why is it ridiculous?
The rhetoric worked for Trump, right? They're eating our dogs, eating our cats.
I just find it astonishing. No other European country treats their elderly like we do.
Hello, I'm JJ Anisiobi and welcome to the Daily Expresso. Today I'm joined by Express columnist Carole Malone and we've got a belter of a show for you. Carole, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm good. When you pronounce your name, I've always pronounced your name a totally different way. And I'm sure you're doing it the correct way.
Because you call me JJ Smith. That's
No,
why.
no, I call you JJ Anisiobi, but it's not. You say it
Anisiobi.
Anisiobi.
It's spelt phonetically.
I'm not changing it because I can't now. It's in my head that way. But
Well, it's funny because before we'd ever met, I used to see your name in the paper all the time, and I thought it was Carole Malone.
Yeah. Well, it would be if there was a Y on it.
Right, well,
Silly
there you go.
boy.
Let's get started. Right, Donald Trump yesterday used his UN speech to savage Britain and the West days after his historic state visit. When Trump departed the UK, it seemed as though his stay had largely gone without a hitch. We even said on this programme that Starmer had come out of it largely unscathed. Well, last night at the United Nations General Assembly, Trump tore this to shreds. He claims London wants Sharia law. He laid into the UK's green initiatives and said Europe is facing damnation over migration. Regarding Europe's looser approach to asylum seekers, Trump said, your countries are going to hell. Carole, overall, what did you think of Trump's speech?
Well, I think overall he's right. I mean, I think that there's not an awful lot in there I disagree with, apart from the Sadiq Khan guy was saying he was trying to bring Sharia law in. I don't think he's specifically trying to do that. But it is spreading. We have 82 courts in the land, so it's not good. But anyway, I love the way he delivers. I just love the way he just gets rid of protocol. He had 15 minutes, he took an hour. Yeah. He took the mickey out of the UN building, which he had offered. Remember when he said you're standing on terrazzo? Mm-hmm. The dig at that was that he had offered in 2000 to pay for marble floors himself out of his own pocket. Yeah. And they said no, they knocked him back. So I love that little dig. But I love the way he just delivers. And they're not laughing at him anymore. If you look at the people in that room, in his last presidency, they were just laughing at what he says. But, what he said yesterday, and let's just kind of break down what he said. He said, get rid of your open borders. He said, stop importing criminals. He said, defend your sovereignty, defend yourself against Islamic terrorism, defend Christianity, end the ghastly green policies that have minimal effect and that are costing us fortunes. We have the highest, gas prices in Europe. So there's nothing he said there that you can disagree with. And yet I have spent the last day and a half arguing with people over this and they go, he's a lunatic. There's nothing that he said there makes him a lunatic. He's spot on right. Europe is going to hell if it doesn't get a grip on out of control immigration. And I was just talking to someone today on the left, I'll put that politely, on the left, who doesn't agree with any of it. They just think he's not a lunatic. He delivers in a bad way sometimes. His grammar's not great, but the bottom line of what he says is right. And he said, America is the hottest country in the world at the moment. And he's not wrong. Trillions are coming in because of his tariffs into this country, because he's putting America first. Mm-hmm. And what he's saying to Europe is, put your countries first. Look after your countries, protect your borders, defend your sovereignty. And there's nothing wrong with any of that.
Agreed. I liked the fact that he was literally cussing out people and they are sat there in front of him. Yeah, telling the UN, you're basically useless, you do nothing. Saying how the Chinese are taking advantage, the Chinese don't care about green initiatives and they are polluting 55% of the world's emissions. Yeah, he's saying it all and everyone's there.
And he's saying it to us too. He's pointedly saying, to Britain, who he was here last week enjoying our hospitality, but he's actually basically saying that we're doing it all wrong. He's castigating Starmer for our idiot energy secretary, Ed Miliband, not letting us drill in the North Sea, not granting licenses to drill in the North Sea, when we could have all the energy we need from the North Sea. And yet we're buying it from foreign countries and charging a fortune. And he's saying to people, don't buy from Russia. The people keep on saying he's a friend of Putin, but he's saying, don't buy your energy from Russia. Stop doing it. So there's nothing there, I think, that's wrong. And his criticisms of the UN are absolutely right. For decades the UN has done nothing. Last time he was president, he called it a club for people to just sit around and drink and have a nice time, and that's exactly what they do. They don't take any preemptive measures to stop wars or conflicts happening, and when they have happened, Trump says they just write a letter. And then they don't follow up on the letter. So what do they exist for? I thank God, and I'm not saying it. I mean, he does say stupid things often. I was going to say sometimes, but he does say stupid things often. But there's not a braver leader, I think, in the Western world currently. And I think this was a rallying cry to the West to save themselves.
So the fact he was here enjoying the state visit last week and didn't say any of this stuff, didn't even hint at it. No. Was he just on his best behaviour because he didn't want to embarrass Starmer and King Charles?
I think so. But also remember, Starmer did not say when Trump was here that he was going to recognise the Palestinian state. He was too gutless to say it when Trump was here because he knew Trump would have him for mincemeat on the world stage last week if he had said that. He said plenty since, obviously. And that kind of shows you what kind of leader we've got. Too gutless to tell the President of America that he's going to do this, despite the fact, well, it probably could be because Trump had begged him not to do it, as had Netanyahu, because they said it would hinder the peace process. The hostages begged Starmer not to do this. They said, I just read a really sad line where this one of the families of the hostages, a mum, said, please don't recognise us until we have our loved ones home in our arms. And basically what the hostages are saying, there's no reason for Hamas to release the hostages now because Starmer has handed them a victory, a prize for slaughter and for terrorism. The very day that Starmer recognised Palestine, Hamas slaughtered 3 Palestinians in the street in front of everyone because they'd been distributing humanitarian aid and they hadn't given Hamas their tax on the humanitarian aid. So this is the country that Starmer has recognised, and you could understand why Trump would be very angry about that.
One crumb of comfort Europe can take from Trump's UN appearance is what turns out to be a monumental shift in how he perceives the situation in Ukraine. Trump's bromance with Putin might be over after the US president came out of his meeting with Zelensky full of praise for the, quote, brave Ukrainian leader and highly critical of Putin's paper tiger army. Trump then posted a Truth Social post claiming that Kyiv is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. This is good news for Ukraine in theory.
In theory it is. And if he's going to give them more weapons maybe and give them access to more money, it's quite an incredible shift. I think he's realised that Putin is not the patsy he thought he was, and Putin is not going to do what he wants. And so he's kind of turned on Putin, and he's basically said that Ukraine could take all of its lands back, and he thinks that they actually will. And what he's been saying is, a real military power, and he's talking about Russia here, could have taken Ukraine in less than a week, which I don't think is true. He doesn't understand the Ukrainian people if he thinks that. But that's what he said. And what he's basically doing is having a pop at Putin and saying, your army's useless, you can't do anything, this is the thing. And he's saying to Ukraine, he was very complimentary about Zelensky. And he's just saying, I want. He's basically saying he wants Ukraine to win now, which is a shift. But the only way they can win, of course, is if he gives up more money, more weapons, and the rest of the West does as well. It's the only way they can win.
What do you think Zelensky has agreed to with Trump? Because Trump is the king of the deal.
He is the deal maker, yeah. The deal maker and the peacemaker. Who knows? I think Zelensky's at a point where he might agree to almost anything. But if Trump is saying you can have all of your lands back. He didn't say almost all. He said win all of your lands back, which means he doesn't have to give up the regions that he was talking about originally.
Yeah.
So maybe he's going to help them do that. I don't know, but it's got to end soon. I mean, we thought recently that Zelensky's leadership could also be in trouble because the Ukrainian people are fed up now. They've had years of this. But I think it's good if you have if you have Trump on your side. I think, the fruits that you would get are better than if you're against him. And now it looks like Zelensky is on his side. They're on the same side. And so that can only be good for Ukraine.
I don't see Putin giving back every last bit of land. And surely, if China and India, who have been blamed as being the big backers of Russia, if they increase their spend with Russia.
Yeah, but he's got no one to fight anymore. I mean, he's pulling people off the streets to go fighting now, pulling people from other countries to go fighting. So he is in the most depleted state he's been in for decades, Putin. So I don't know how long he can go on fighting a war, to be honest. But but it's interesting. The Ukrainians are, my husband's from Bosnia, he's from Eastern Europe, and he was saying to me right at the start of this, the West doesn't understand the mentality of the East and the way they fight, and certainly not the mentality of the Ukrainians, because they will go on to the last man. They will. Yeah. That's just what they'll do. And but they're losing people too.
Well, Trump made a good point. We touched on it earlier. Why are European countries still buying gas from Russia? They're out there saying this war's got to end. Putin's a tyrant. He must be deposed. Yet you're giving him money that's helping him continue this war.
Yeah, I mean, it is
It beggars belief.
It certainly. I don't care about the rest, but I do care about what's happening in this country, and that when you have Ed Miliband, this idiot zealot Miliband, who is just not letting people drill in the North Sea. We have decades of energy in the North Sea, and we wouldn't be reliant on tyrants in foreign countries. And yet he is making it so. And this Trump can't understand. In fact, none of the rest of us can understand when we have all this energy under our feet, why we're not doing anything about it. And he has told Starmer time and again. But there was that story that wasn't there where we were told that Starmer tried to fire Miliband but couldn't. I mean, I don't get it. Just say you're useless. There's the door. Off you go. But he's not doing it. So in some kind of twisted way, he must be supporting those policies. Yeah, which are costing every household in this country money they can't afford.
Another thing Trump said in his speech was that he ended 7 wars. Yes. He's confused, but with his language, he was involved in stopping 7 conflicts.
Yes, yeah. and he he's done incredibly well in those areas. The India-Pakistan thing. I mean, people who are saying today he's talking nonsense. People are forgetting how close India and Pakistan were to a war. People were frightened a few weeks ago that was going to happen. But in the Congo as well, he had the conflict with Rwanda and the Congo. He had people in Washington from both of those places, and none of us knew about this. Yeah. And we had Macron today saying, if he wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize, he's going to have to stop the war in Gaza. Why doesn't Macron stop the war in Gaza? Why doesn't Starmer stop the war in Gaza? Because they can't. But at least you have a guy here who was doing something about. He's talking to various countries to try and do something. And it makes me laugh when they say he doesn't deserve the Peace Prize. They gave it to Barack Obama. You'll remember.
Less than 6 months of him being president, he was awarded
he'd done nothing. He did even less for the rest of his presidency. But, the secretary of the Nobel Peace Prize Committee said they hugely regretted giving it to Obama. There was a point where they were going to try and take it back because they said they gave it to him to try and spur him on to do good. And, of course, he did absolutely nothing, stood on the sidelines for everything. But then they want Trump to solve every war that's happening in the world before he can get it. Yeah. I mean, I think, I don't know if he's done enough to deserve it, but I think he's done more, certainly than the UN, certainly than Western Europe, because he says you can't solve wars with words. And you can't. You've got to solve it with action. Hence when he sent the bombs into Iran. So he's prepared to do something. The rest of the world leaders are not. They just talk. We have Starmer talks, Macron talks. None of them do anything. Yeah.
Well, let us know what you think. Who is the best world leader right now? Trump, Macron, Starmer? Maybe it's someone else. Now, to matters back home. Nigel Farage has made the claim that Eastern Europeans in Britain are eating swans in royal parks and taking carp from ponds.
If I said to you that swans were being eaten in royal parks in this country, that carp were being taken out of ponds and eaten in this country by people who come from cultures that have a different... Would you agree it's happening here?
The Royal Parks charity have rejected Farage's claim, saying we've had no incidents reported to us of people killing or eating swans in London's 8 royal parks. This is not something that we haven't heard before.
We have heard it before. In fact, there's even video film, not of them pinching swans, but of them pinching geese and ducks. And there was one piece of film where a group of migrants were carrying a goose into an apartment they were living in, and someone actually asked them on film, "Are you going to eat that?" And they said, "Yeah." There was another one where someone was cooking a bird in a park on one of these like little takeaway barbecues, and they were asked if it was from there, and yes, it was. So, although it's a story that sounds ridiculous, what Farage says is that when Trump says something like that, the world goes, "Oh, for God's sake, how ridiculous!" But why is it ridiculous? Because where these people come from culturally, it's the thing to do to eat those birds. They're delicacies. Goose and ducks are delicacies in some of these countries. So why wouldn't they, if they see one floating around a pond, why wouldn't they just think, "I'll have that.
Yeah.
I'm a bit hungry. I've spent my allowance this week. I'll go and have that." But it's just when the Royal Parks say they have had no reported incidents, that doesn't mean it's not happening.
Yep,
It
correct.
absolutely doesn't mean
Correct.
it's happening. But it does sound, when you say it, ridiculous because it's so abhorrent to us and we can't imagine anyone doing that. It doesn't mean it's not happening.
Well, the rhetoric worked for Trump, right? They're eating our dogs, eating our cats, and there's loads of memes and music videos made from those comments.
And do we know they weren't? Because we know in some countries they eat dogs. In China, they eat dogs.
Yeah.
They roast them alive in China because they think they taste better when they roast them when they're still alive. I mean, so it's not that it doesn't happen. It's that it has not happened here and it wasn't happening in America. But
So is Farage just copying Trump's playbook then?
I think Farage copies a lot of Trump's playbook, but I mean, I don't necessarily always think that's a terrible thing. You know, what Farage is doing, what he did, last week when he announced all his latest policies. What it is, it's putting Britain first, and that's obviously what Trump does. You know? And Farage is saying only British citizens should get benefits and welfare, and there'll be millions of people in this country cheering him on that.
Well, I've got to be honest, about 15-ish years ago when I was a much younger journalist, I was sent to a place called Valentine Park in Ilford, Wanstead border, to follow up on a story of people, locals saying they'd seen what they described as Eastern Europeans carrying swans and ducks out of the lake and running out the park with them.
Yeah. So the fact that hasn't been registered with any parks authority just doesn't mean it's not happening. But, I think Farage, he's following Trump's playbook because Trump's playbook worked, got him re-elected for a second time.
Yeah.
And it's, mind you, there's a poll today that said his popularity had gone down from 10 point something to 9 point something. It's not a lot, and it's one poll, but, and they don't, interesting, something like 76% of people in America don't think he should get the Nobel Peace Prize, which I think is also interesting. But anyway.
Spiteful people.
I think so.
But whilst we're on this topic, Carole, you wanted to share a story you'd seen in the newspapers.
This is to do with migrants. The same thing. It's a story about. It was in certainly the Mail and the Sun today, and it's about migrants are getting £600 taxis to take them to their doctor. So when they first come here, they see a doctor here, but then that doctor maybe moves somewhere else. So instead of getting them another doctor here, they're putting them in a cab and sending them 250 miles that way and 250 miles back. There was one bloke here. He had a bit of a knee problem, and he got a 600 quid cab ride. Now, to me, this is what makes people's blood boil when they hear stories like this, because sick people with bad knees, people with bad everything, can't get free taxis on the government to get to a hospital to see a doctor. But we have our housing minister, a guy called Matthew Pennycook. He says, and this is very telling, this quote, he says, when he's talking about the migrants getting cabs, he said, "These are not ordinary citizens just jumping on a bus." So what he's basically saying is migrants are special cases and should get special treatment more than the ordinary people who are actually paying for the taxis for these people. And when you read stories like this, it makes you cross. It's like, remember the baby Stockholm, which was moored just off Weymouth. It was good enough to house. Who was housed there? It was British construction workers were living on there. It was perfectly good enough for them, but it wasn't good enough for migrants, and that's why they were all moved off. And this is where people see this like two-tier. It's not even two tiers, just this two-tier lives that migrants get the kind of luxuries that ordinary people don't get. They have to pay for their own little luxuries and whatever, and they have to pay for people who are coming to this country who've done nothing and contributed nothing. But I just find it astonishing. I was also reading today that all of their credit cards, they get credit cards every week, which are loaded just with money from us every week. Go and spend that.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just astonishing. And one of these migrants who's come, this is Kadir, he said, he said, could he get a train? And the government, whoever was handling it for the Home Office, said no. So the Home Office is spending our money. Here's a guy saying he's happy to get a train and to go to wherever. The Home Office is saying, no, we've got plenty of money. We've got loads of it. The Home Office, all those bods, get all their stuff paid for on expenses.
Yeah.
Whereas the ordinary people, as they see us, get nothing.
Well, speaking of money, 500,000 pensioners could lose their winter fuel payments in the next 4 years. This according to some bombshell analysis. OAPs will be clobbered because of Rachel Reeves' freeze on how much income can be free of tax and changes to the vital benefit. Currently, retirees with income over 35 grand will not receive the winter fuel payment, which is worth up to £300, as the state pension is expected to rise by 4.7% next April, in line with the triple lock. And other pensions are expected to go up in line with inflation around 4%. It means a large number of pensioners' income will be pushed above this amount. Carole, does this Labour government just hate our pensioners?
They hate pensioners.
Literally,
they hate pensioners.
I can see why people would think that.
Yeah, they hate pensions. First, to take the winter fuel allowance away, and it's the thing that it is the stain on their
on their record,
15-month reign. It's the one thing that they're defined by now, that they took money away from vulnerable pensioners. Then they said, "Oh, you can have it back. Most of you can have it back, but most of them aren't getting it back." And I know 35 grand sounds like a lot of money. The state pension alone is going to be 12.5 grand next year, which is nothing. I mean, that's £1,000 a month. It's £1,040 a month. I mean, anyone in this room try living on that. You can't do it. And a lot of people are going to lose it because they bust the limit by a few quid, 100 quid or whatever. But it's all to do with the inflation-linked, pension rises. So the pension has gone up. But those inflation-linked rises are only. They just maintain the life you have already. They're not giving you extra money in your pocket. Inflation is now up at 3.5%. Food inflation is at way more than that. So pensioners are having to pay an awful lot more for everything that they do. Energy inflation, that's going up. So, the fact that their pension has gone up, it's not going to put more money in their pockets. They're still a lot of pensioners are still going to have to make that decision this winter, whether to eat or to heat their houses. And, for a supposedly civilized society, we're supposed to look after our most vulnerable. I get so angry. I do a lot of stuff, working with young people who all think they think all pensioners are millionaires, and it's just not the case. A few people have a private pension. Some pensioners are living in £1 million house, but in London that's not hard to do. It's a house they probably paid a few hundred quid for 40 or 50 years ago. What are they supposed to do? Give that house away now and go and live in a hovel somewhere, and give it to a young person who hasn't worked for it. These elderly people have worked for what they have. And to treat them like second-class citizens, I just find it astonishing. No other European country treats their elderly like we do. But, it's Labour. It's not even we. The Tories never treated pensioners like this. But I just think if they're trying to get a second term, which they clearly are, it's not going to happen. We know it's not going to happen. But if they were, you don't go after pensioners a second time. Yeah. It just doesn't make any sense.
What about pensioners who are, like the few pensioners you're saying who can afford to not have the winter fuel payment? Should they return the 300 quid?
They should, yeah. Someone like me, and I am a pensioner.
A multimillionaire.
No,
correct.
Not a multimillionaire. I wish.
Just a millionaire.
Why do you think I'm still working? I wish I was. People like me shouldn't get it. Of course they shouldn't. And I've only had it once, and I got it about 3 years ago, and I felt bad. And both my husband and I gave it away to charity because we felt bad. But there, to a lot of people, or to me even, 300 quid is a lot of money. That would probably pay for a lot of pensioners. Yeah, two months of your energy bills. The worst winter months.
Yeah,
and a lot of people, a lot of people living in London who are quite wealthy, they'd pay that for a dinner out in a London restaurant. But that's not the reality of most people's lives. And I just think when you have a government that thinks you can use pensioners like a wall bank, like a cash point, to me, it's just the wrong attitude to have about the people that you're ruling over the people you're in charge of. These are the people who should have the most care of everyone in our population.
Yeah.
And they're not getting it from this government.
Well, Carole, here at the Daily Express, we fully support our
Yes.
pensioners and we will continue to fight for them
Yes.
as long as we can. But it's some good news, Carole.
Yes.
Good news for you from your hometown because
Yes.
Greg's is launching its
Yes.
first ever pub in Newcastle.
Yes.
The Golden Flake Tavern will open its doors within Newcastle's Fenwick department store, pouring its inaugural pint this Saturday.
Did you say within Fenwick's store?
Yeah.
Do you know how posh Fenwick's is?
Well, not posh enough, apparently.
It is.
You got a Greg's in there.
Posh is like the Harvey Nichols of the North.
2 bespoke draft beers, the Pink Jammy Pale Ale and Gosforth 1939 Stotty Lager.
Do you know what a stutty is?
What's a Stotty?
Okay, a stutty is like a massive bread bun. It's a big.
A bread bun?
It's like a bread bun. It's this big, and people just eat them as a matter of course. Some people have two, filled with all the sandwich fillings that you get in normal sandwiches. And the jammy, the Pink Jammy, that's based on the Jammy Dodger, the biscuit. Obviously.
Okay.
That's what all that's based on. But I would get. I've just read some of the stuff that listen to some of the puddings they're serving here. Yum bread and butter pudding. Now that's those donuts, those really fattening, sugary donuts.
Yeah.
This is even worse. A dish of donut pieces set in jelly. I mean, that's turning my stomach. That's actually making me feel a little bit nauseous. Topped with jam, custard and whipped cream on top of all of that.
Disgusting. That sounds disgusting.
I'd give it a go once, though, wouldn't you?
No.
I would definitely give it. Now, they should have called this restaurant the Steak Bake because, of course, Greg's is famous for its cheese and onion pasties and its steak bakes. But they've called it something else bake, haven't they? It's called there's
The
a
Golden Flake Tavern.
They should have called it the Steak Bake Tavern. Then you know exactly where you are. You know that's a Greg's restaurant.
Well, do you eat Greg's? Are you a fan?
You know what? Since I've lost a bit of weight, I try not to look in the window.
Really?
But in years gone by, I could not walk past a Greg's without having a cheese and onion
Well,
pasty.
you're not going to walk past this, mate.
Oh,
Let me
what have you
tell
got?
ya.
What have you got?
Taste test. We have got 2 Greg's sausage rolls. I want you to have a bite of both of
see,
them
now sausage
and tell
rolls.
me which one is vegan and which one is pork.
Oh, hold on. I
Go on.
can tell already.
How can you?
That's vegan.
You are absolutely correct.
I know.
You knew it before you even tasted it, just from
What?
the look of it.
No. Whatever's in the middle of that is just not good at all. You should try it. That's very nice.
Oh,
That's spicy.
That'll be my lunch later.
It would have. Well, you could cut that bit off that I've had my face around.
So, would you go to a Greg's pub?
Yeah, I would. I would I wouldn't necessarily. I wouldn't go every day because I'd put 3 stones on. But I can't believe it's in Fenwick's.
Yeah.
I can't believe Fenwick's have let
Thanks. That's the
Greg's
one with
in.
the green background and the fancy white writing. Yeah.
Fenwick's is super posh, man. It really is.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, it's a really expensive department store.
Yeah.
So I can't. When I was a kid, I used to go to Fenwick's, and my big treat as a teenager, me and my pal used to go in, and they used to do these things called peach melbas, and they were massive, big orange things with cream underneath. We used to save our money and go to have a cup of tea and a peach melba in Fenwick's. So I can't believe now they're letting Greg's in, but it's good. I think it kind of shows that all shops are just interested in making money. So Fenwick's their sales must have gone down a bit.
Right, well, whilst you stuff your face on the rest of the sausage rolls, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone who's been watching. The caffeine's worn off. That's all we've got time for. Thank you for watching the Daily Expresso. Thank you to Carole Malone. And join me tomorrow where I'll be joined by Conservative MP Esther McVeigh. Bye-bye.
Munch, 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 munch.